Alison Beer of alisonbeer.com, where I work with adults who want to reignite their creativity, live lighthearted, and learn to draw their very own cartoon characters. This is Q&A Saturday, and I am so delighted you're joining me. Today we're building on our video that we did last week, which was starting to draw stickmen and using them to leapfrog into cartoons. So today we're looking at proportions for your stickmen and the best way to get really good at drawing stickmen in all sorts of different poses. The next step on our sticky journey is Stickman Proportions and then practicing sticks so that you get really good at drawing them in realistic poses. And if we look first at Stickman Proportions, take a look here. The average male proportions of an adult male, 8 heads high. Okay, so there you can see we have the picture of the man in the background. If I replicate the size of his head 8 times and stand them all up, he's 8 heads high. Obviously that will vary somewhat according to gender and according to different people, but it's a rule of thumb. Then of course we have our child and our tot. And a child, you're looking at about 5 heads high. So let's take out that title so that we can see round it. And you can see here 5 heads from ground line and the little tot 3 heads from ground line. So the most obvious thing is looking at that toddler where their head makes up 1/3 of their entire height. And these are the things that indicate that a character is different ages and different genders. Because if someone's a little shorter, let's take the average woman at about 7 heads high, then you start to get the idea. Of course, with cartoons, it doesn't really matter what your proportions are. I mean, with caricature, you're going to end up with something could be completely different. And that is something that we'll get to in the next video. So I'll just cover it very briefly and mention it today. But it's not something that you need to worry about too much now. So often with a cartoon, the head tends to be bigger than it would be in real life in proportion to the rest of the body. Often I make the head about the same size as the length of the torso. With children, you can make it, especially with babies, you can end up with the head being half the size of the body. So you end up with a little person sitting like that with their feet out in front of them and their arms going down like that. There you've got a baby who's only 2 heads high. So proportions, what you do with them indicates age, gender, and various other things about your cartoon character. Beyond looking at proportion, there's something else that we're going to look at. How do you get good at drawing stickmen or people looking realistic? Here's where I've got a great hack for you, which is one that all of my students use and it's really invaluable. Here we have this man, and I'm going to show you a woman as well. The thing to do is to go to something like Google and say you're looking for people standing, or it could be child standing, or man standing, woman standing. You just type it into the Google search box and you come up with a whole load of poses. You're bound to find a number of poses that appeal to you, and then you can use those to trace, but not tracing like you would have done possibly when you were a child. Take a look at this. Let's take down the opacity so they're not quite so defined. We're going to start with the lady. We'll trace her head. And then let's take a look at her shoulders. We know where her shoulder joints would be, spine down to her pelvis, hip joints, arms up to the elbow, the wrist and her hand, and again elbow, wrist and hand, and into her legs. Her hips are slightly shift over to the right, which I haven't really done, but knee, ankle, foot on the bottom. Once again, hip to knee, to ankle, and then the foot on the bottom. Let's have a look at the man now. Starting again with his head. So his head, spine down to his pelvis, hips there, shoulders with the shoulder joints on each end, down to his elbow and his wrist with his hand in his pocket. Same on the other side, elbow and wrist with the hand in the pocket. Then of course we've got his hip joints somewhere behind the hands, a knee joint, ankle joint, foot on the bottom, and again hip to knee to ankle and a foot on the bottom. This is just the best way to get into all sorts of challenging poses. It's really just a matter of going to Google, deciding what it is you're wanting to look for, typing it in. You might look for walking, running, jumping, dancing, sleeping, falling, hopping, pointing. It might be arms, it might be legs, it might be the head. Whatever it is you want to do, you can Google it, find a reference, do some tracing, and you'll become the master of sticks. So that's how you get to grips with proportions for different types of stickmen, whether they're male, female, old, young, babies, whatever they are, that's how you tackle them. Once you've become expert at reproducing poses in your stickmen, it's time to move on. And so next week, we'll be covering how to put clothes on your stick person and turn them into a real character as opposed to just a skeleton. I hope you'll join me. If you liked this video, please give it 2 thumbs up on YouTube and of course subscribe to my channel, and I would love it if you shared it with all of your friends. If you'd like even more tips from me and all sorts of goodies which I only share on email, head on over to my website www.alisonbeer.com and sign up there for email updates. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on Q&A Saturday.